presenting on electromyography. I'm Lorene.
I'm Angela.
Jennalisa.
Erika.
Jared.
This is an outline of what we're going to be presenting on today. We're going to be talking about the EMG significance, the background, the circuit and filter, the design of the bioinstrument, the different methods, how data is collected, and some example results. So what the significance of EMG is that it helps diagnose muscle and nerve disorders. So some types would be the nerve dysfunction, muscle dysfunction, and nerve-to-muscle signal transmission problems. Some of the information it can provide about the damaged nerve roots, nerves, and muscles are the location and the severity. And some examples of the disorders diagnosed are nerve lesions, muscular dystrophy, and polio. So this background, the motor unit basically makes the electrical impulse. So this is a diagram of the motor unit. It consists of a neural and muscular unit. So the neural unit would be the motor neuron cell body, which is in the spinal cord, and it connects peripherally to particular muscles. The muscle unit consists of the muscle fibers, and the axon is connected to it by a chemical synapse. So what happens is when there's an action potential in the motor neuron cell body, it excites the whole motor unit, causing the muscle fibers to contract. And so how the action potential is created is when the magnetic potential increases to a particular threshold. So the ion channel is open, letting in sodium and letting out potassium. So that creates an electrochemical gradient. And as it keeps going, it increases the membrane potential more and opening more channels. So that creates the electrical current. And that electrical signal is what is sensed by the electrodes that's used in the instrument.
I'll be going over the design of the EMG. So, right here you have the input from the muscles. You have your diodes to direct current, so you don't electrocute. You have your amplifiers to amplify the signal. Your output is being read by a converter, the ADC. And then the second part of the circuit, it's fed by a 9-volt battery. There's a trip current in it with a 500 milliamps, so you don't burn out your system or the circuit. And then also, in addition to the amplifier, you also have to consider the frequencies that you want or don't want. What you want is the slow twitch motor unit frequency of 70 to 125 hertz. And the slow twitch is basically when you're the long distance jogging or biking, while fast twitch is running, and that's a frequency range of 125 to 250. The frequency that you don't want is the 60 hertz noise. So you're going to use filters, bandpass filter for the first two, band stop for 60 hertz, and a butterworth filter to increase sensitivity. In addition, you have the root mean square to reflect the motor unit, the electrical configuration, where the electrodes go, and the amplifier characteristics. Here's a lab view diagram. You'll see the third one. And then part of the overall design is including the electrical circuit that amplifies and changes the signal to read it. You also have the electrodes with the silver chloride.
So continuing with the bioinstrument design, the PC-based ENG /EP measuring system hardware is a multi-processing unit for rapid data collection and graph display. So that way, while you're in the doctor's office, you can get your results right there, and we can tell you what kind of disease you have, or if you are very normal. It has low noise, which is really good, and a high common mode rejection ratio, which allows the signal to be very clear and to not really have any guesswork on, well, I don't know if the signal really means anything. It independently programs stimulators for sophisticated examination, so your doctor has to only push a minimal number of buttons to change what they're measuring and where, and what electrodes. So there are two different methods for doing an EMG. There's the surface EMG, which is shown here, and the intramuscular EMG, with that very, very nasty looking needle being inserted into your muscle. So the two different methods, the measure end, sensor, signal processing, and output display are basically the same for each one. So you're going to have the fluctuations in the electrical potential being your measure end. Your sensor is the electrodes that are being used, either surface electrode or needle electrode. The signal processing is the filters that Jenna mentioned previously. The output display is going to be the oscilloscope on the PC computer that the doctor has in the office. So the difference between the two methods that are being used. The surface EMG uses electrodes placed on the skin to measure the electrode activity. Its quantitative results records very broad range of the muscle. It's very non-invasive and very safe unless, of course, you have a metal allergy to silver. Its intramuscular EMG, on the other hand, is a needle electrode inserted directly into the muscle tissue, and you use several of these. So it can be quite painful and very invasive, and it can affect how the muscle reacts during your testing. So it's not always the one that you want to use first necessarily. It's a lot more accurate than the surface EMG though, so which is why it's the gold standard for comparisons.
So what you want to look at when collecting data is the increased insertional activity, which is the activity that shows up on the EMG when the needle is placed onto your muscle. You also want to look at abnormal muscle membrane instability, which includes denervation potentials, positive sharp waves, and fibrillation potentials. And up here you see normal axons. Up here you see axons with increased positive sharp waves. And down here you see chronic motor units. And for normal results, at rest, typically you would want to see very little activity. During flexion, you would like to see activity that begins to appear. And during a contraction, you want to see electrical activity that increases until a pattern can be seen. And this is a clip that we have.
We'll do it at the end so that way we have time.
Okay. And then for abnormal results, usually you will get some deviance that looks like this. And that deviance can quote for multiple variety of different diseases. Among them, neuropathy, nerve dysfunction, myasthenia gravis, carpal tunnel, Guillain-Barré syndrome, myopathy, and approximately 25 other diseases. So you really have to study the amplitude of these signs and abnormal potential activities.
So to really understand what an EMG is used for and its value, we were able to get our hands on some actual results from someone that went in for an EMG and nerve conduction test. And as you can see, the very first one they did is on the patient came in complaining of severe right foot pain, and just at random times they'd be walking, sitting, it didn't matter. And as you can see the left, when they tested the left foot, it showed a pretty normal curve, and then when they tested the right, it had increased irritability. And what they're looking for in an EMG is basically what we talked about earlier, which are positive sharp waves and fibrillation potentials. And you can see that here there's high frequency readings that they noted, and the positive sharp waves here as well. But neither one of those are enough to diagnose a nerve disorder by itself or muscle disorder. You want to, if both of them show up at once, because the fibrillation potential is spontaneous action potential generated in the muscle, and that's what actually caused the nerve pain. And you can see that here you have fibrillation potentials and sharp waves, with, and this is in the right foot. So that diagnosed initially that there is something wrong with the nerves, but what's nice about an EMG is that you can test a variety of places to figure out exactly where it's coming from and what type of nerve pain it is. And that's actually what they did. And when they tested the paraspinal muscles, they found positive sharp waves in the paraspinal muscles and increased irritability. And that diagnosis is actually a specific type of neuropathy, which is radiculopathy, which is, it comes from the nerve root. And that actually helps with treatment and alleviation of pain when you know exactly where the nerve pain comes from. And this is the summary that gets output as well. It just kind of sums everything up for the physician or doctor that you're going to. And as you can see, there's a high frequency discharge, and this is all on the right. The intrinsic muscles that are supplied by the tibial. So that's why they concluded that it is from the nerve root rather than from a random place in the nerve that could have been damaged from anything. And we got a references, and the we have a summary of what the videos look like.
Okay, so as you can see here, there's normal movement, and then that little short segment that you saw was when the needle was inserted into the muscle. So then that constitutes a normal insertional activity. Moving on to the next video. There's clearly something wrong with the patient's nerve function.
Which
And
This one?
okay, that one shows. So you see like weird spontaneous movements that shouldn't be there in the first place. That's all damage.
And one more actual thing for the EMGs is that, as Angela said, the needle electrode test is actually considered the gold standard. And for the patient that we were describing earlier, they actually had the surface electrode, but the nerves were so damaged that the surface electrodes weren't able to get a good reading. So that's why it makes you kind of wonder why you'd even have a nerve stuck in you if you can just do it with the surface. And that's actually why, is because they can record stuff that surface electrodes sometimes can't.
All right, so does anyone have any questions?
We actually have 1.5 minutes for questions.
No questions, really?
How's that going?
This is a Supergirl called The Question, and I have Dr. Clark laughed really loud in the back there.
Sorry, I recognize it.
Could you go back to the picture with the needle? Because I saw that it had like a claw at the end, and I was just curious how they inserted that.
Very carefully and very painfully into the muscle. Actually, there's no anesthesia, so that will affect how the muscles and how the nerves transduce. So this is really, really painful, which is why it's like the last source. They will usually use the surface EMG to first diagnose to see if there's any problems. But a lot of, as Jared was saying, a lot of nerves are, if they're damaged really badly, you're not going to really see where or when it's going to be on the surface and EMG. Yeah.
So in what cases would they have to insert the intramuscular?
In cases of severe root, so like for instance, I know we talked a lot about diabetes in this class, but or in our other classes, but neuropathy caused from diabetes can sometimes progress really rapidly and bad. And if you don't have enough of your nerve left that's acting normally, you can't get it with the surface. So it's only for extreme cases that the surface EMGs won't pick up. So for in this case, that right foot was really bad, and it was at the root, so it was pretty much a gone nerve.
I don't know if you know this, but EMG devices usually have a selectable filter for the 60 or 50 hertz, because there are countries that don't use 60 hertz.
Yes, that's why we show the lab view. So you can actually insert your own types of band stop if you want. They chose the Butterworth for this. As we all know from 130 Lab, there are various ones. There's elliptical, inverse elliptical, there's the Butterworth, there's the Chebyshev, there's all kinds of filters you can insert into the system quite easily that can be done for each country and for around the world. And that's what engineers are job is to make these circuits that are really easy to use.
What about the harmonics, like 120 hertz and 80 hertz? The multiples of the
usually the hertz, you're not usually generating a frequency so much, you're only an impulse. Usually very low, so that way you don't actually hurt the patient, because at like megahertz or 80 hertz, that can be quite painful since your body is probably closer to about like under 10 hertz when you actually are using your nerves. Very small impulses.
Yeah, the impulses are on the scale of millivolts, so very small nerve impulses are impulses.
which actually makes the noise issue more important.
Yep.
Okay.